and welcome in to another episode of Heat of the Moment. My name is Micah. I am joined, as always, by my fellow host and friend Lino. And today, folks, we are going to be discussing what has been a very interesting series between the Miami Heat and Cleveland Cavaliers. If you're listening to this show, you're a Heat fan, so you probably know we are down 0-2 right now. Game one was pretty discouraging, but I will say some good signs of life in game two that I think could potentially be some traits this team could build on to maybe steal a couple games in this series now that we shift back to Miami. But, we can go over the different statistics. Cleveland shooting unbelievably well from three. Funny enough, Miami and Cleveland are teams 1 and 2 in effective field goal percentage out of all playoff teams. So Miami actually hasn't been that bad offensively either. But there's a lot to get into. Lino, to open it up first, we are down 0-2, even as many moral victories as we might want to take from game two. What do you think has been the biggest problem so far in this matchup for the Heat?
Yeah, I think the biggest problem I've seen for us, and probably where my greatest frustrations are, is that we've been not very strong on the defensive end of the ball. I think in that first game, Cleveland really got to anything and absolutely anything that they wanted to get to offensively. And when we tried to at least shrink the floor in the second game, I think that worked to a certain degree, but then they just started shelling us from three. And I just don't know that we made adjustments fast enough. Ultimately, like you've alluded to, offensively, I've been relatively impressed with what we've been able to accomplish on that side of the floor. I think, scoring 100 points and then 112 points in relatively efficient games for the most part, and getting some key contributions from some of our role players. That's been awesome. But defensively, I think I expected us to show a little bit more grit there and give Cleveland at least a little harder of a time, and maybe not allow people like Tyra Jerome to really have career nights against us so often. But yeah, that's kind of the main focal point that I probably look at as we go through this conversation, is just what kind of adjustments did we make and what could work going forward. Because while I thought things did look better in that second game, ultimately they scored 121 points on us twice now. And if we're going to win any games, we just have to stop them. Like offensively, sure, we could score more points, but I'm not going to expect this team to put together, 130-point games for the rest of the series. If we're going to win this, we're going to have to get them into a box score that looks similar to what we're used to. And right now, we're just not doing that. But what have you been seeing out there? And kind of what were your first impressions coming out of a frustrating 0-2 start?
I had similar thoughts as to that you did, as far as the defense seems to be a bigger problem, especially because we know this Heat team is, if they're going to win games, normally it's going to be defensively. They were, I think,
Mm-hmm.
ended up being, per cleaning the glass, like the ninth best defense on the season, and they were like 21st in offense. So while the offensive, boost has been nice, they're going to need to figure out the defense. And the beautiful thing about basketball compared to a lot of other sports is those two elements are so interlinked. They're so connected. And you're seeing that. I thought, especially in game one, you saw that from Cleveland's rotation, because you're watching that game and it's like, oh my gosh, Garland's got 25. Mitchell's got 25. Ty Jerome's got 25. But you look at the rotation, and at least in my opinion, it felt like Cleveland did not fear Miami's offense enough to play better defenders out of their rotation. So you look at guys like
Mm-hmm.
Dean Wade, who's a good defender, DeAndre Hunter, Isaac Okoro. They weren't really worried about stopping the Heat so much, so they were able to lean into a lot of minutes for Ty Jerome, minutes for Sam Merrill. And so that's why this Cleveland offense, especially in that first game, it's just unbelievable. I think Cooper Moorhead, who writes for the NBA, I think he said it was the highest offensive rating the Heat allowed in a game this season. And there was some insane shooting, just as there was in game two as well. But you could see that the Cavs were like, oh well, if Hero gets Ty Jerome on a switch, we'll help, we'll sink in, we'll recover, and we'll live with that. We feel like that trade off of having him on the court, playing a lot of four guard lineups. They would play four guards and just one of their two bigs a lot of the time. they felt like that was worth it. And it certainly was in game one. I feel like in game two, the Heat's offense was a little better and their defense was a little better. And I think
Hmm.
that made Cleveland bend a little back the other way. So we saw a little more of some of their more defensive oriented players. We didn't see, another Ty Jerome explosion, saw less minutes from him. And then there are several factors that lead into that. But so those are the things we're concerned with. If you have any thoughts on that, you can go. But if you don't, I know we talked about the offense looking good. What have you thought the Heat could build on that we've seen so far? What has worked well for them in these two games?
I think that we've done a better job of playing at our pace. I think we got a little closer to our style of basketball. I think we got much more disruptive on defense there in the back half of that second game, which was really nice to see. And honestly, I think the most of that credit could probably go to Niko Jovic adding himself to the lineup. I thought his contributions, notwithstanding some of the shaky stuff at the end there and some of the missed shots, which were really brutal. And I'm sure we'll get into his overall performance, but I do like the lineup changes overall. I like that we went with Davion Mitchell to start and that we brought Nico in. I thought those were two great options that really helped us out. One, we got off to a great start in this game. And if, Cleveland didn't go on a crazy run of 3-point shooting there to what was it, towards the back half of the second quarter, this game probably would have been a lot closer, if not well into our favor. It was just took a lot to crawl back out of it, and then by then we just kind of ran out of time. But yeah, that's kind of the main thing that I could take away, that I was like, we can build on this. I think Nico getting a little bit more comfortable is very disruptive for this Cleveland team for some reason. I thought they just kind of looked really uncomfortable on offense, especially when Donovan Mitchell wasn't in the game and we went on that run. They didn't really seem like they knew what to do. And it felt like with Davion and Nico out there and Bam and Wiggins, like there wasn't even though Tyler was on the floor, I don't think we let them take advantage of that as much. And we really, applied more pressure off the ball from help defense in ways that were actually effective. And then on offense, I think it just Nico adds a little bit of chaos to our offense, which has been harmful in certain ways, but I thought really helped us get on a run there. So that's something that I'd love to see, is just both of their minutes continue to go up. I mean, Davion Mitchell's minutes are up there, but him starting, I think, is crucial. Nico, continuing to warm up after this being his second real basketball game since February. Him getting more comfortable, getting his conditioning up. It may be too late for that, but I still think that's better than most of our other options. But, is there anything else that you're seeing in there that you think we can really lean into moving forward?
A lot of it you hit on. One thing I've been really pleased with is the ball movement. Right now,
Hmm.
Miami's at like a 60% assist rate, which is higher than their regular season number, where they were ranked very high. They're actually number two out of all playoff teams, and I think that's important. This offense, as great as Tyler is, it's going to be him creating advantages, but then other guys having to capitalize off of those advantages. So
Hmm.
I've been really glad to see the ball move. It was definitely more so, I felt like a better trend in game two compared to game one. I felt like in game one, the way Cleveland zones off the ball with like their help defense, it's very tough to deal with. They really, similar to what Miami does. Cooper Moorhead was talking about this on his show after the buzzer. They really dare you to make tough passes. They're like, hey,
Hmm.
Andrew Wiggins, you can post up Donovan Mitchell, but we got Evan Mobley right behind him. And unless you can make a cross court skip pass to Haywood Highsmith, then we're just going to stay where we are. And until you do that over and over again, we're not going to worry about it. So I thought in game two, Haywood had a great game. He's going to
Oh,
have
yeah.
to knock down threes. And as many threes as he knocked down, there were still multiple times where he pump faked, where he could have shot it, where he kind of did
Hmm.
a drive that went nowhere, where he could have shot it. And, I get it from Haywood Highsmith's perspective. He's like, man, I'm not trying to take 16 shots a game, but sometimes that will be necessary against this
Ty
kind of
Jerome sure doesn't mind taking 60 shots a game. So
right.
it's going to take one
Exactly.
of our guys being an X factor for sure. And I thought Haywood Highsmith was incredible in that game. Just some elite shooting in ways that I was not expecting. He's been a really good shooter for us. when he's like on throughout the season. But to do that in the playoff setting, I thought was really, really awesome to see. And, shout out to him. I think he went 5 for 6 from three, which is like 83%, which is crazy. And yeah, there was 3 or 4 looks in there where he probably could have gotten 2 or 3 more. And yeah, I agree that I like the energy that we put on the ball, especially late. I think that the problem we're running into offensively is that there's not great ways to take advantage of the poor defenders. Because they're willing to switch Evan Mobley onto anybody. They'll send help. They clog the paint because they're super long. And so every time Davion Mitchell would get a paint touch, I'd be like, there's no way he can do anything from in there. Like, yeah, congratulations. You made it into hell. Like, what are you going to do now? Which I think he was, another kudos to him. I think he did a great job of getting in there and then getting the ball out to some open people for some open threes. But at the same time, you'd like to convert some layups. And I also appreciate that he didn't just try to force them because they would have been very difficult to make with Jared Allen and Evan Mobley in there. But I don't know how they do it. And I'm just not a smart enough defensive guy to really see the coverages that they do. But even when we were to get someone in a mismatch per se, which I think was what we were most excited about with this new roster, is that with Andrew Wiggins and guys with speed like Davion Mitchell, that maybe we could create a few more mismatches and attack those, with size and speed. But it just feels impossible to do so against this roster. So really all we've been able to do is bend the defense to where we can get an open three. But it would be nice to have someone that we can just attack the way that they attack our sweet innocent child. Our Prince Tyler Hero has been going through a lot there. But yeah, it's been interesting to watch for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to transition into what we're looking for going forward. I think it makes the most sense to start on the offensive end, because the defensive end, like we referenced, is probably where the series will be determined. So we can start with the offense and end with the defense. On offense, you alluded to it. Mismatch hunting in this series is complicated. It is
Yeah.
not like, you watch Boston mismatch hunt, but they have 5 out spacing. So when Jason Tatum gets, whoever it may be, Corey Joseph, they're playing the Magic right now. It's not like everybody else of the help defenders, like at the boxes and elbows, ready to like dig and help. They're all spaced to Derek White, Kristaps Porzingis, Jaylen Brown. Whereas with the Heat, we know there's pretty much a non-shooter on the court constantly, and there's usually at least 2 guys that defenses don't really respect. It's why
Mm-hmm.
Haywood's open, it's why Kalel's open, it's why Bam's open from 3, because all those guys are pinched in. To start this game, I liked how Miami seemed to really be intentionally going at Darius Garland. He's the smallest defender on the court for the Cavs, the weakest defender on the court. And Wiggins got him in, I thought, were pretty good spots on the court for Wiggs. The
Mm-hmm.
problem is Wiggins, he was going into post ups quite a bit, which normally is fine if you have good spacing. But again, Cleveland was daring us to move the ball. So he's 1 dribble, 2 dribble, backing down Garland. And Evan Mobley, who we're recording on the 24th, is probably going to be named Defensive Player of the Year tonight. Is just waiting at the basket. And he's like, yeah, come on, Andrew. Try and make this jump hook. Like, I'm ready. Like, are you gonna throw the skip pass to Bam in the corner? What's that gonna do to me? Like we've talked about Bam's improved from 3, but again, these are things Cleveland is too comfortable living with, I think, is the problem. So one of my notes for Wiggins, who overall, I mean, we can talk about him specifically. He needs to get going on offense. He can't be another one of the ensemble cast. He has
Yeah.
to be like a true third option for this team. And I think quick, decisive drives are going to be really important.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably lost a little athleticism, but this is a guy that can dunk on Jared Allen and Evan Mobley.
Yeah.
Like this, like you see Davey on him, and he had a take last night. I think he blew by Garland or Okoro, and Jared Allen was at the basket, and Davion just put a shoulder into him and then finished with the left. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, if you can get by your man, which Wiggins can definitely get by Garland, and then it's just you and Jared Allen at the rim. Free throws, a layup attempt, those are valuable things to generate within this offense, even if it's not the perfect shot because it's not an open hook shot against a mismatch. So I think Wiggins
Yeah.
being more decisive and doing more quick drives than
Mm-hmm.
most.
Downhill movements would be nice to get from Wiggins. I think he is he can be pretty effective with that post hook, and we know he loves to go to that. But if we're going to get the fouls that we need him to generate contact and just try to finish at the rim at the same time. I agree. That's such a good call out. I think that is going to be a big game changer for us. And you're right. Wiggins has to be a real guy for us. Like, he needs to be someone with one of the highest usages on the team, and it needs to be efficient. And it does. One way or another, I'm going to know how I feel about whether we should keep him this offseason. Just how the
Yeah.
next, 2 to 4 games go. But we will see what happens for sure there. I think Bam is a really unique player all the time, but especially in this series, because obviously he gives you everything. He gives you on defense, rebounding, things of that nature. He's got a lot of hats he has to wear right now, and overall, he did a ton of things. 14 rebounds. I think 5 of them were offensive rebounds, and then also what was that? 9 assists. And so, like, he's very, very active and involved on offense, but this kind of matchup, I feel like, is really dangerous for him because while I think he can be a really good scorer, I think you have to be an elite offensive scorer to keep up with someone like Evan Mobley. And Evan Mobley is a defensive player of the year, whether Bam likes that or not. And so it's just going to be really challenging for him because I've never really needed him to be an elite offensive player just because he does so much. Like, being a good or great offensive player is just fine by me. Like, I don't really ask for Bam to be, everything. That would just be a lot. But in this series, I don't know how effective he's going to be able to be if he can't either mismatch hunt or, take it to Evan Mobley. And I just don't know at this stage of their careers. I think Evan Mobley has really started to catch up in a lot of ways, defensively. And then offensively, I just don't think Bam can do much there in that matchup. So, what are you thinking about Bam's performances so far? And do you think there's anything else he could be doing to be more effective on the floor?
I echo a lot of your sentiments when it's comes to asking for more from Bam because it's like, if there was any kind of way he like actually heard this, he'd be like, guys, I'm
Yeah.
boxing out every calf. I'm setting every screen for these guys that can't get separation. So it is tough to ask more for Bam, but he's the carrier of the culture. He's on a max contract. Like, this is the kind of stuff you have to ask for. Game one, he was solid. I think he got up to like 24 points or something. Game two, like you alluded to, less scoring, but still was involved. I think for Bam, and this is a lot to ask. This isn't something you can just turn on, but decisiveness from a playmaking role is going to be really important for him. Watching
Mhm.
his what I think are some of his better opportunities so far this series, it's usually Tyler Davion running a pick and roll. Cleveland's usually in a drop. So they can hit Bam with that pocket pass. Bam catches about at the free throw line. And when he does that, most of the time, Evan Mobley's right in front of him. And then right behind Evan Mobley at the rim is Jared Allen, who's like barely, concerned about Khalil Ware or whoever,
Yeah.
or Haywood Highsmith, however it might be matched up. And I think those are the moments where Bam has to make really quick decisions. I think as as series goes on, he'll see more film and maybe that'll become more evident to him. But if he catches on that short roll, he needs to be like, okay, immediately I'm going to this jumper. Immediately I'm going to this floater. Or I'm swinging it to the corner. I'm flipping it back. I'm re-screening for Tyler. I think the moments, and you can see this to a much larger degree with Haywood, but the moments that Miami creates even a little advantage, they have to capitalize so quickly because of how this Cavs defense will rotate and just snuff out that advantage really quickly. So, Bam, obviously aggressiveness is always great for Bam, but like you're alluding to, I don't think any Heat fan just wants him trying to, drive through Evan Mobley over and over
Yeah.
again. But if it's out of the pick and roll, if Mobley's on his back foot, if Bam can get to his jumper, or if he can hit Wiggins in the corner or Haywood in the corner, whoever it might be, if they're playing off these guys, then that would be helpful. But yeah, at times he might have to force stuff. And,
I agree. And I think that's, and that doesn't, this may be too galaxy brain. I know it doesn't sound like it's a smart idea to take it to a defensive player of the year candidate who's probably going to win. Um, but at the same time, you can't just give him a free night just because he's good, like the same way. And this is different because I think people do this to Rudy Gobert because they don't think he's a defensive challenge. But people take it to Rudy Gobert because he's a defensive player of the year and they make him prove it. And with Evan Mobley, I feel like that's not the case. I think a lot of the times we don't put him in challenging situations that make his job a little bit harder. We pretty much avoid him all night, which honestly makes his job easier, which gives him more energy to do things on the offensive end. But if we were just to attack in a way that was a little bit more aggressive, I think that is the right term that you use, even describing Bam, but the whole team, like if we could just be a little bit more physical, a little bit more aggressive, and really make these guys work on the defensive end and really chase things down. Like our offensive boards were up, and I thought that was huge because I felt like once they got back down on their end of the court, they were a little bit more tired. They just went through two defensive possessions, whether we made the shot or not. And I think those little things are going to add up for sure. And even if you're right, like even if Bam doesn't have the best matchup against Evan, if he's on his back foot, like drive it at him, see what happens, see if you can generate a foul. Let's see if we can get some of these bigs in some foul trouble. You mentioned that other people are hesitating too. I thought Davion Mitchell and Tyler both had situations where they'd switch onto the guy they wanted to be switched on to or catch someone in a disadvantage, and they'd kind of pump fake out of it and then be stuck a little bit. And I was like, that was probably your chance to get a good shot, and you just pump faked out of it, and now we have to reset the whole offense again. Or they'll pump fake, the guy will blow by, and then they won't shoot it. That happened at least 3 times for both of our guards there, and that was probably one of the more frustrating things for me. And I just wish we would be, like you said, much more decisive in that area.
Yeah, that's well said, and it echoes back to that same sentiment where the more time you take to process offensively, the more time the defense has to rotate to load up on you. Because if you look at this Cavs team, Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, awesome defenders. If you replace them with like two average front court guys and it was Garland, Mitchell, and Struess, or even Garland, Mitchell, and DeAndre Hunter, you're like, oh, there's a lot of points to attack here. But you're
Mm-hmm.
seeing it like Tyler will get Garland on him. He'll break him down, no problem. Garland will be trailing him, be on his hip, but the good shot, quote unquote, that Tyler generates is a floater over Evan Mobley or Jared Allen. It's like it's not that hard to get past the initial defender. It's dealing with that back
Mm-hmm.
line. Davion had a great play. It was one of the last baskets that he scored. He broke down a Cavs perimeter defender, drove in, Bam, instead of just waiting in the corner, cut from the corner. Davion threw a lob, Bam dunked it. So maybe some more off ball activity from the bigs could be helpful, instead of
Yeah.
Bam or Kalel just hanging out at the dunker spot waiting. If they're cutting, maybe moving more off ball, that could create some opportunities maybe to generate some good looks.
Speaking of our bigs, what are you seeing out there with Khalil Ware right now?
The game two is an improvement for sure. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, first playoff game coming off two essentially elimination games in the plan. That's a lot to ask for a rookie. But yeah, game one, he got the rookie treatment. I mean, Cleveland was like, yep, guard this, buddy. And they were going at him. But yeah, game two, I thought it was more of an energy thing, was really where the improvement came from. I thought he did a good job hustling down rebounds, things like that. But ultimately, my opinion, I'm cool with his role shrinking right now. Like I think, if he's playing 10, 15 minutes, that's good. He's getting playoff experience. But I don't fault Spo if he wants to lean way into Haywood, way into Nico, because this is a tough series to ask Kalel to suddenly be ready to go. It would be
Yeah.
really nice if we'd had a great regular season and like we were playing a 7 seed or an 8 seed or
Mm-hmm.
something, and then yeah, you can let Kalel get some run. But to ask him to actively and intelligently guard what was one of the best offenses in the entire NBA this season, every single possession, it's a lot to ask. So I haven't seen anything that I think is a fatal flaw, but I have seen enough to think, all right, yes, Spo, I'm good if we want to lean into some of the other guys, not take them out of the rotation, but just if we want to emphasize some more veteran guys.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think he's probably just not exactly ready for it, and I would be okay with it if the shot was falling a little bit more. I think he went 1 for 5 from three in the first game, and then 1 for 3 in the second game. And it's a make or miss league, and in the playoffs, if you're the weak link and they're giving you those shots, whoever can make those shots has to play. And eventually, I think he'll get it together. I think he is, a decent, like maybe slightly below average 3 point shooter, maybe an average 3 point shooter. I can't remember where he finished on the season, but he had some high moments there throughout the season where he was shooting really effectively from out there. And it just isn't presenting itself right now. And you can kind of tell there's a half-second delay in even the decision to shoot it. And I think that's throwing things off for him too. And the confidence is going to start to wane. And I appreciate the size out there, but the way that Donovan Mitchell even gets buckets, it just I don't know if it matters right now. And so I think going to Nico, going to Highsmith are going to be the key there, which is unfortunate because not unfortunate in the sense that I think this is going to have any kind of damage to his career. I think he'll figure it out over time, but it would have been nice to get a little bit more juice out of him.
Yeah, well said. From a team standpoint, I think it's really important that Miami keeps pace with Cleveland in 3-point rate. In the
Mm-hmm.
first game, Cleveland took 12 more threes than Miami, but in game two, both teams took 45 threes. And
Oh wow.
obviously, Cleveland made more. They shot almost 50% from three, but keeping those looks up is important. And I think that speaks to Miami's ball movement improving. And as the series goes on, I mean, it's human nature. They have a super intelligent coaching staff. They'll get more comfortable playing against this Cleveland defense. They'll start to realize, how they can impact it in a positive way. You definitely see that from Tyler. I mean, his game one it was pretty rough. I mean, they were selling out to stop him, which every team should do against the Heat. He's really the only consistent creative advantage creator on offense. But in game two, I mean, we've talked very highly about Tyler all year, but I was like, wow, this guy is like a certified playoff scorer. Like I mean, he's the number one option against the number one seed, and
Mm-hmm.
he still gave him an efficient 30. I
Yeah.
thought that was really impressive. I mean, he's having to work a lot off ball. Davion starting helped a lot because Tyler's not getting picked up full court, bringing the ball up. But he's just leveraging his off ball scoring really well. He's getting into his shots. He's getting to the floaters, getting to the basket. He's comfortable attacking Garland and Strus and these different guys. So, we've talked a lot about the offense, but honestly, overall, it's really been better than I could have expected. It's really the other side of the ball that is going to need some work if they want to make an effort to get into this series, we could say.
Yeah. Yeah, if we because we need to really solidify things at home and I don't know how the Cavs do on the road, but historically role players play a little worse on the road, play a little better at home, and that could make all the difference for us, I think, going forward. They hit some really wild shots at a prolific clip there in this both games really, and so hopefully that will die down as we have the home crowd moving forward. But I say that, and they'll probably light us up once again. But that's something we can hope for. I mentioned this in the last conversation we had about this, but defensive intensity from Tyler. I think we were talking about this after the first game. Like, what can we do differently defensively? And the answer was really just play a little better. And that was mostly focused on Tyler. I think he's been great offensively, especially in the second game. And I do think there were improvements to his defensive effort and just being really disciplined on the defensive end in the second game. I think he can, I think there's still room for him to play at his highest level defensively. And if we do see that, and if we just see some smarter rotations and some smarter decision making, um, that will really make the difference for us moving forward.
Yeah, no, that's well said. I have a few stats on that. I think it's time to transition to the defense in general anyway. I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's the side of the ball that's most important and what Miami has most struggled with. That is highlighted by the fact that Cleveland, so far in the playoffs, has a 133 offensive rating, would be the best all time ever, ever, ever. And it's also highlighted by the fact that the number two offense in the playoffs so far is the Oklahoma City Thunder at 121. So 12 points per possession lower than Cleveland's offense. If you guys haven't been paying attention, the Thunder have won by about 70 points combined so far in games one and two. So what are we looking at here? The first thing is Cleveland's threes, right? 45.5% from three over two games, 50% in game two, they have this whole Cavalanche thing. It's honestly a pretty good idea. It's pretty funny. They like make it snow in the arena when they hit a lot of threes. It was pretty cool. I won't lie. But it really does feel like that. I mean, they have a lot of offensive weapons. They have a great offensive system. Kenny Atkinson probably should win Coach of the Year because I mean they flow from open three to open three to open three. They start every action with okay, let's get Tyler Hero on somebody the Heat don't want Tyler Hero on, and then they start their pick and roll. They attack Tyler. They create an advantage, and then it's just swing, swing, swing. Open three, Struce. Open three, Merrill. Open three, Mitchell. Whoever it is, and so Miami to stop the 3-point barrage has to stop the initial advantage that is created, and like we've talked about, that starts literally almost every possession with Tyler.
Hmm.
It's part of it. I mean, it's beneficial in multiple ways for Cleveland because you're tiring out the Heat's best player and you're getting good looks because he's not a very good defender. And like you said, game one, dude got deep fried. Like it was, I mean, he got eviscerated. Cleveland
Yeah.
shot 12 of 16 against Tyler in game one, 29 points, 9 assists, 2 turnovers. So he got absolutely fried. Game two, a little bit better, 9 of 17, 27 points, 4 assists, 2 turnovers. But here's the key difference to me, and I think this is what's really important. There's been a lot said about the Tyler matchup, Cleveland guys, how they're attacking Tyler. To me, in game one, Ty Jerome and Darius Garland shot 10 of 12 versus Tyler. Now, we saw what Ty Jerome was doing. That was like an out of body experience, but they were killing him. In game two, Ty Jerome and Darius Garland shot 1 for 4 against Tyler Hero. So we went from 10 of 12 to 1 of 4. So you hear the overall numbers and it's like, oh man, Tyler got killed again. But it was a lot of Donovan Mitchell, which that's Donovan Mitchell, man. Like there's only
Yeah.
so much you can do. It was like 2 shots from Evan Mobley, shot from Merrill, a few shots from Struce that were just contested threes. Those I'm not worried about. That's just part of everyday NBA offense. Him being able to hold up against Jerome and Garland, I think is so important. Mitchell is going to create advantages. That's just, he's a great player. But I thought Tyler's improvement against those other two was very important for the Heat being able to start to get a grasp on defense in
Hmm.
the series.
Yeah, I think that really led to a lot of the success or how we got things so close there is I think Kenny thought that Darius Garland and Ty Jerome were going to be able to really hold things down while Donovan Mitchell was out, and that just was not the case as they really couldn't be effective and we started trapping a lot more and they weren't as effective there either. But it does start with Tyler just being a little bit less of a traffic cone, and I think he showed that, and I'm excited to see him continue to ramp up there.
Yeah, it's encouraging, and like you said, Steve Jones Jr. on the Duggar spot always puts this well. Sometimes it's just the do better button. Sometimes
Mhm.
it's like, hey, you just had 2 days off. You got to see some film on them now. Play harder, play with more purpose, and a lot of things will go better. So that's the place to start, right? We have to limit these opportunities they get from attacking our weaker defenders. So that's fair. But what are some things we can do to mitigate that other than Tyler just trying harder, right? So from what we've seen in game one, the Heat conceded a lot of switches. There wasn't a
Mhm.
lot of show and recover. It was just like, all right, Tyler, you switch, we'll try and load up around you, which in a lot of times I like. I think that makes sense. It doesn't in this matchup, clearly. So in game two, we went to show and recover. If anybody watching doesn't know what that is, basically Tyler is getting or Tyler's man is setting a screen so that Donovan Mitchell, whoever the offensive player is, can get Tyler switched onto them. Instead of switching, Tyler shows. He basically tries to block the offensive player's path while the initial defender, normally someone like Davion Mitchell, is running around this entire action to get back to the person they were defending in the first place. And I'll tell you what, Davion Mitchell, you can't say enough good things about what he does defensively because he's very hard to screen. Like
Yeah.
he's so hard to screen. He draws a ton of illegal screens. But then the other thing, these are guard screens. This isn't a big that's like used to setting screens. So Davion's just getting over a lot of these. And
Mhm.
so that's awesome because it's running down Cleveland's shot clock. it's like we're talking about, they create the first advantage, but then it's usually a few, swings of the ball before they actually get to the open three. So the more you can do to limit how long, or to increase how long it's taking them to actually get into this advantage that they create, is good. But yeah, Davion navigating that's going to be important. We always say this, mixing in a blitz every once in a while. I know it's hard to do because the back line has to be like aware that's what you're
Hmm.
doing, but just a few different looks. I felt like game two, they did a lot better job of Cleveland not feeling like an automatic. Like they're just, Donovan Mitchell's bringing the ball up and he knows in 4 seconds Tyler Hero's going to be guarding me on an island. It
Yeah.
seems like they had to work through it a lot more. What do you think about
Hmm.
those concepts?
No, I agree wholeheartedly. I thought that not just letting them get the switch on to Tyler is going to be key. Like, I think we can do that sometimes, but we do really have to throw in some wrinkles that make them have to pay attention to what we're doing defensively. You're right that throughout those first two games, more so in the first one, the offense just kind of got to go through their offensive plan without really being disrupted. And I think that is the key, is finding ways to be more disruptive. And I thought Nico and Davion Mitchell both were key to that in the second game when we got close. They were very disruptive. They were blitzing on occasion. They're biting down into drives, getting steals out of that, really just throwing off what the defense was trying to get to. What we've done so well against other teams is really pushing them to the end of the shot clock and really making it difficult for them to get into their offense, whether that's picking it up full court or throwing doubles here and there. I know Bam hates when we throw doubles. He's so adamant about this guard your yard thing, which I'm like, brother, Tyler Hero is trying to guard a yard right now, and it's not working. But I do think being more aggressive in those kind of scenarios and being as disruptive as possible. I did think that Tyler did a better job of, even getting a little bump in there whenever he's doing the show and recover, like really making some contact with the ball handler so that there's even more time for Davion Mitchell to get over. And I'd be curious to see some situations like where else we could hide Tyler, like on a
Ooh.
different person on the court. Like, is that DeAndre Hunter? Is that, do we put him on Jared Allen and see what happens? Like, we can switch
No,
out of it. Like, we can switch out of it if Jared Allen actually gets the ball. But you know, if you want to run your offense through Jared Allen, sure, go for it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the offensive rebounds is what I would be afraid of there, but stuff
Yeah.
like that, like you're talking about. I remember last year in the playoffs, I think it was game two, maybe game three against Boston. Tyler or Spo just made Tyler's primary matchup Jalen Brown, and
Hmm.
everybody was like, "Wait, that's not on purpose, is it?" But Jalen Brown like took over the offense. He just kept trying to go at Tyler over and over and over again. So everybody else got frozen out of the offense, and it was effective to, for a degree. Then Jalen Brown kind of figured it out and it became more problematic. But another thing that you're kind of alluding to that I wish we would try a little is like some pre switches or some
Hmm.
scram switches, whatever terminology you want to use. But so Donovan Mitchell's bringing it up. Everybody knows Max Struess is about to run up there and set the screen. Well, Davion, you're on Garland, but if you see Max Struess going up there, you go with Max Struess. Tyler runs out to Garland. And now it's like, oh, okay, well, now hold on. Let me call up Garland or let me get it to Garland. Again, there's still problems. You're still playing whack-a-mole essentially on
Hmm.
defense, but all these things will slow down Cleveland's momentum. They'll take more time off the shot clock, and hopefully there were several possessions like this in game two. It's like, Cleveland never could get that switch. They never could get that advantage they wanted. Now Darius Garland's driving on Davion Mitchell, and it's like, oh, I feel pretty good about that. Like he'll
Hmm.
probably get some stops. So I think everything regarding that is important. Anything that's going to give Tyler a little more time to recover. um, Oh, one other
How do
thought.
we? Oh, go ahead.
Well, no, you go ahead. I'll circle back to it later.
I was really curious. Is I feel like we don't ever do this, but can we play some like deny basketball? Is there any way we can get Davion Mitchell just don't let Donovan Mitchell get the ball if he doesn't already have it? Like face him up. Like Amin Thompson on Steph Curry. Like people literally drag Steph Curry to hell throughout the game. Let's just do that to guys like Donovan Mitchell. Like let's just make it really difficult for them to get to their primary scorer. And it's not going to work all the time, but I think that kind of work to just get the ball does have its effects. I maybe Davion Mitchell just isn't that type of defender. That's not a part of his skill set. But I wish we could see a little bit more of that moving forward, where we just really challenge what they even are trying to get into to begin with.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting thing. I'd have to think about it really because, yeah, you don't see the Heat do a lot of all out denial like that. And I don't know if it's like because of their help principles, like they like having certain defensive spacing. But yeah, it'd be interesting. I mean, especially because I feel like as the season or the series goes on, Donovan Mitchell is like the head of the snake. Like Garland is good, tough to deal with. Mobley was an all-star, one defensive player of the year just now. But I think if you take away Mitchell, you have a chance. I thought so in game 1, Mitchell was 9 of 10 on twos. Not survivable. You're not going to make
Mm-hmm.
it past that. In game 2, Donovan Mitchell was 3 of 11 on twos. Honestly, was having a pretty pedestrian game until he went berserk from 3. He ended up 7 of 10 from 3. So I mean, that's obviously he still ended up having an incredible game, but pull up threes, I mean, there's only so many ways you can guard that. You know, he's not Steph. You're not going to like trap his pull up threes. But to limit his 2 point attempts, I think is going to be very important on defense
Mm-hmm.
and limit the efficiency of them. So I mean, they did that really well in this game too. I thought Donovan or Davion was a huge part of that. Haywood had some great minutes. There was a possession early in the second, I want to say. I think Tyler was on the bench. But Garland and Mitchell run their little screen for each other action they start a lot of possessions with. But Haywood was on Garland and Davion was on Donovan Mitchell. And so they switched. And so Haywood was on Donovan Mitchell. And I was like, oh my God, a switch I'm okay with. Like,
We can live through this.
this has been years. And I think Haywood did end up like fouling Donovan. But the point remains, I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, we have multiple guys I feel comfortable with. That was the other reason I thought playing Pella was really wise by Spo.
Mm-hmm.
Alec Burks, once he was taken out of the starting lineup for Davion, did not play a second. And I think that makes sense. It's just not a series for Alec Burks. It's really not a series for Duncan either. Duncan's really struggled.
I was going to ask you if there's anybody we need. I do think we need to tighten up the rotation a little bit more. If there's anybody that need to drop off, I think you already know my answer, but I was going to ask what you thought about Duncan's play.
Yeah, I mean, Duncan, anytime the Heat are doing okay on offense and struggling on defense, I feel like the eject Duncan button is the first one everybody's going to press. Now, of course, in game 3, if we struggle on offense, then we might be like, oh, we need Duncan shooting. But yeah, right now, I thought Pella didn't play a ton, but I really liked his minutes. He had a strong drive on Evan Mobley. And he's another guy where, like, if Pella's on an island with Donovan Mitchell, he's probably going to foul him because Pella's young and fouls a lot. But he's not going to
Mm-hmm.
get blown by. He's not going to, make the whole defense fall apart. So I would be cool with more Pella minutes, more Nico minutes if he's up to it. I'm sure his conditioning is rough right now. More Haywood, and then you have your 3-person bench. So I don't
Yeah.
really think this is a slow mo series, but you could try him. I mean, he's a good defender too.
Yeah, I think if we end up having to really taper down Clo's minutes to like 10, maybe even really take him out of the series, we might have to go Kyle Anderson, but otherwise, yeah, I think Pele, Nico, and Haywood are going to round out our bench, and it should just be kind of an 8-man rotation.
Yep.
But yeah, I think Duncan just I think I do get frustrated sometimes with the decision making. We were texting about when he helped off of that. I can't remember who. I think he might have helped off of like Sam Merrill or like Ty Jerome or
I
something. I
think
was
it
like, bro,
was
you
Sam Merrill.
cannot help off of this guy right now
It
on
was
someone that's
who?
being well defended already.
Yes, that was a thing. I think it was Nico defending Mitchell, or maybe it was
Something
Nico.
like that.
And Nico's doing a good job. Like maybe it's Ty Jerome. Anyways, an offensive player that really didn't have a step on Nico yet. And Duncan just helps from one pass away, and they make that one pass, open 3, bang. And you could see Nico was like upset. He was like, I had it. Like, you should have left it alone. Like, stay on your guy. I think Duncan was the worst plus minus on the team in game 2, which, I mean, single
Mhm.
game plus minus, it isn't the biggest thing, but that does feel pretty well representative of his performance. And honestly, Duncan is the same thing with Tyler. Like, if you play Duncan when Tyler's off the court, then Cleveland feels just as comfortable because they're starting this every possession with bring me Duncan Robinson. I'm going to attack Duncan Robinson. Whereas if that's, maybe a high caliber defender, your offense probably suffers some, but then you at least are making Cleveland have to work a little more. Um,
Hmm.
and and hopefully, this is another thing we should probably hit on. Hopefully, you make Cleveland turn the ball over. That is
Yeah.
a staple of Miami's defense, and they have not been able to do that so far in this series. Cleveland has taken really good care of the basketball. A lot of it because you can't turn it over if you're, ripping the nylon from 30 feet.
Yeah.
But regardless,
Oh
Miami
my
needs to
gosh.
figure out a way to generate
Yeah.
turnovers. It's funny, Heat fans listening, I'm sure you heard Darius Garland, name drop Tyler Hero is like how they're going to keep winning or whatever. They're like, oh, we're going to keep attacking Tyler Hero. But the question asked by the reporter in that instance was like, Miami wants to turn you guys over. You guys have done a really good job taking care of the ball. How are you going to make sure you keep doing that, going forward? He's, oh, we're going to keep attacking Tyler Hero. It's like, okay, that's cool. Like you got your little like quotable with the media, but you didn't even really answer the question. But it is an important question for the Heat, which is how are they going to force this team into some turnovers? I think again, like I love the idea of some trapping. Like let's make Jared Allen and Evan Mobley make some plays. Let's make
Hmm.
Isaac Okoro or DeAndre Hunter. Like I feel like every pass this team makes is coming from Garland or Mitchell or Jerome
Yeah.
to an open 3-point shooter or to a dunk.
Yeah, I think that is going to be huge. Just one, getting the ball moving a little bit more because they don't even necessarily have to move the ball a lot on their side. Like they generate offense off the dribble or off a screen and then just hit shots. But getting the ball out of people's hands and then trying to get the ball into people that we can live with killing us. Like I thought I could say that about Ty Jerome, but clearly I was wrong. But surely there's someone else on this roster we can, try to force them to play out of at least a few more possessions so we can get this thing a little bit closer. That's definitely going to be key for us.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing that I started to say earlier, talking about like the do better button, with Tyler on defense, to circle back to that, Hero, he's such a confident player. It really stands out when he isn't confident in something. And right now, his show and recovers do not feel confident to me. They feel like something he's trying to do right or trying to do the right way, trying not to mess up. And I feel
Hmm.
like when Tyler's really, confident in what he's doing, even on defense, you can see that. I remember in that Golden State game, Jimmy was trying to get Tyler switched onto him over and over again. Tyler was getting deflections. He was like showing his hands to try and make sure there weren't easy passing lanes. He was being an aggressor on defense.
Disruptive and aggressive. Yes.
Yeah, disrupt is a great word for it. Now, obviously, Jimmy's not a pull-up three-point shooter. You have less space with Garland and Mitchell, but regardless, I would like to see Tyler feel more comfortable trying to make an impact with these show and recovers rather than trying to survive within them.
Mm. That's exactly the difference. You nailed it on the head there on that last bit as far as the difference that I've seen in what he's done defensively before, where he's at the top of his, I think, defensive capabilities, which are not crazy high. But when he's up there performing at that level, he looks frenetic. Like you can see his hands movement, you can see his hands. He's up front, really trying to defend and make a stop or generate a turnover. Whereas right now, it looks like an older version of Tyler where he's just trying to survive the defensive possession,
Mhm.
which is just not going to work out for him in this current matchup. So hopefully we'll see a little bit more confidence on that side of the ball because I do believe he's capable of being a better defender than what we've seen over these past two games.
Yeah, well said. And yeah, we can pretty much wrap up there. I mean, game two, I'm a fan of moral victories. I know some people are very opposed to them. I thought the Heat played really well, and it took the greatest 3-point shooting quarter in NBA postseason history, with them hitting 11 threes in the second quarter, that being Cleveland, and a Donovan Mitchell barrage in the fourth quarter to close it out. I
Hmm.
mean, it took everything Cleveland had. Miami shot 72% from two in game two, which is insane. It's their like best performance ever from two at any kind of volume. So I thought the Heat have been playing really well in offense. They're improving on defense, and we'll see what happens. I think there's a chance they could get one of these games in Miami. They could scare Cleveland a little bit.
Hmm.
So I'm excited to see where it goes. Also, just last little thing on the defense. I wish the Cavs weren't so good against zone because this
Hmm.
would be like the perfect way to mix in protecting Tyler would be to go into the zone, but Cleveland just shreds it
Oh,
most of the time.
yeah.
So
Yeah, it's sad that that's not an option, but I feel confident going into these two games. I think if we can hold them to like 107 points, we'd be good. It's really just these crazy barrages. Like if we can just let them have a good offensive game, if they just have a good offensive game, then we can keep it close. Because offensively, I think we've been able to keep up with what any normal team might look like. But we just can't let them get prolific with it over the next two games. Like
yeah,
just keep them around even just their averages. Like they're shooting 10, 15% above their own averages right now. And if we could just get them to back to that, we'd have a chance here. And I'm excited to see what we put out there.
me too. Me too. One last stat on that just it cracked me up when I saw it. Miami is fifth in offense for playoff teams. Every team above them, the four teams above them are all 2-0. And they are 0-2 at fifth in offense. And then the next three or four teams below them at least have one win. They're the only team in the top 10 on offense in the playoffs that doesn't have a win. So it's just this weird, bizarro world where all season we were struggling on offense and now suddenly we can't guard anybody. But we trust Spo. We trust these guys. They're going to keep fighting. They're going to find a way to make this a competitive series, which is already is starting to look to be. So hopefully the next time you guys hear from us, we'll be talking about some fun Miami Heat wins. But thank you all for tuning in. As always, please leave a comment on YouTube. We've been seeing some more of those lately, which has been really cool. We're very excited about that. So we appreciate everyone for tuning in. I will see you guys next time. For myself, Micah, good friend Lino, we'll see you on the next one.